A little girl begged for help, but every adult turned away, until a Navy SEAL on leave appeared at the exact moment she needed a miracle. He saw the fear in her eyes, the same fear he carried through war, and he knew he couldn't walk away. With his loyal German shepherd, he uncovered a truth the whole town tried to hide: bullying, corruption, and a child in danger. What he did next shook the entire town and proved God sends warriors when darkness rises. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from, and subscribe for more stories of faith, courage, and the miracles God hides in the darkest places. The small Colorado town of Ashford lay under a pale morning haze, quiet in the way only a place that has ignored too many problems can be. 7-year-old Lily Harper walked toward Lincoln Ridge Elementary in that heavy silence, a silence she had begun to fear more than the voices of the boys who waited for her behind the gym. She clutched the strap of her purple backpack hard enough that her fingers trembled, and every step felt like an echo of the dread coiling inside her chest. She had once walked to school humming songs, stepping on cracks by accident, and giggling as she pretended they were secret portals. Now she watched every shadow, every passing car, every rustling of leaves, as if the world were full of hidden traps meant only for her. Lily was too young for this kind of vigilance, but fear made a child grow inward like a tree twisted by harsh winds. The bullying had started a month earlier, subtle enough that no adult noticed. A shove in the hallway, a stolen lunch, a whisper that clung to her like smoke. But cruelty grows bold when left unchecked. Soon, 3 fourth-grade boys, Dylan Ward, Ben McAllister, and the one she feared most, Hunter Briggs, decided she was an easy target. They cornered her behind the shed where the janitor stored old paint cans. They pushed her against lockers when teachers weren't looking. They mocked her mother for working night shifts at the hospital. And yesterday had been the worst. Lily could still feel the moment they ripped her sketchbook from her arms, tore it page by page, and laughed as her drawings scattered across the grass like broken pieces of her heart. She didn't tell anyone, not because she didn't want to, but because she had already tried. She had told her mother twice, quietly, hesitantly, while standing near the kitchen counter as her mother, Sarah Harper, prepared for her overnight shift. Sarah, exhausted from double work hours, had misheard the tremble in Lily's voice as simple childhood complaints. She had kissed Lily's forehead, told her to be brave for Mommy, and hurried out the door with the weight of adulthood crushing her. Lily never blamed her. Children rarely blame the people they love. They simply fold their pain into themselves and try to carry it alone. At school that morning, the hallways felt like tunnels leading her toward something she didn't want to face. She kept her head down, hoping invisibility might save her, but Lily's hope was fragile, and predators could smell it. She had barely reached her locker when Hunter appeared beside her, leaning casually against the metal door as if it were his. His smirk was sharp enough to cut her breath short. Ben and Dylan flanked him like shadows, eager to please their leader. "Where are you going, crybaby?" Hunter murmured. Lily swallowed and stepped back, but the lockers behind her stopped her retreat. Hunter lowered his voice. "You think teachers care about you? You think anyone cares about you?" His words slid straight into the wound inside her. Her mother's tired eyes haunted her. The principal's gentle dismissal last week. Some children exaggerate bullying, sweetheart. Burned like a fresh bruise. Even the school counselor had told her to focus on positive thinking. The boys knew it. Kids always know when adults won't fight for someone. Hunter shoved her shoulder lightly, not enough to leave a mark, just enough to remind her she had nowhere else to go. Dylan snickered. Ben reached for her backpack. Lily jerked away, but Ben yanked harder, pulling her forward. Her legs buckled. Her knees hit the floor. She bit her lip to keep from crying out. Tears stung her eyes anyway. "Leave me alone," she whispered. Hunter crouched in front of her, head tilted, studying her like she was a puzzle he enjoyed breaking one piece at a time. "Say it louder," he taunted. She couldn't. The words were trapped beneath fear so thick it strangled her voice. The school bell rang. The hallway swelled with students, but no one stopped. No one helped. No one noticed the small girl trembling on the floor with her backpack ripped open and her notebooks spilling out like fallen feathers. Hunter leaned in close. "Back at the gym after school. You better show." The boys walked away, satisfied. Lily gathered her belongings with shaky hands, each motion breaking something invisible inside her. She kept asking herself the same question. Why won't anyone listen? At recess, Lily sat alone on the far side of the playground where the teachers couldn't hear her breathing hitch every few moments. She picked at a tear in her sleeve, telling herself she would be okay. Children tell themselves many lies just to survive the day. The moment school ended, she ran, not home and not toward the confrontation the boys demanded, but toward the one place her mother had always said would help, the police. Ashford Police Station stood on the corner beside an old gas station, its faded paint peeling in long strips. It was a building that looked tired, like the people inside it. Lily stepped inside, heart hammering against her ribs. Officer Myers, a middle-aged man with indifferent eyes dulled by routine, barely glanced up when she approached the desk. "What is it?" he asked. Lily twisted her fingers together. "There are boys at school. They hurt me every day. And today they said—" "Kids fight," he cut her off. "That's not a police matter. But they—" "Go home." His voice was final, not cruel, but careless, in a way that hurt more deeply. Carelessness tells a child the world has no room for them. She walked out of the station feeling smaller than she had ever felt. It wasn't until she reached the steps outside that her vision blurred with tears. Lily sat down heavily, hugging her backpack as if it were the last piece of safety she had. She didn't know someone was watching her. Not the bullies, not a teacher, but a man across the street. Someone whose presence did not belong to this quiet town. Ethan Cole had arrived in Ashford just that morning. A young Navy SEAL on temporary leave, he had come home to see his family after long months of combat operations overseas. His uniform shirt was faded from desert winds and saltwater spray, his boots dusty from endless patrol routes. But it was his eyes that carried the deepest wear. Eyes that had seen too many people abandoned in places where help never came. Beside him sat Ranger, his German Shepherd partner, silent, steady, and attentive. Ranger had survived things no dog should. He didn't fear explosions or darkness, but he reacted instantly when he saw someone in pain. The dog lifted his head sharply, ears angled forward. Ethan followed Ranger's gaze and saw Lily, the small girl sitting alone on the police station steps, the slumped shoulders, the shaking hands, the way she held her breath between sobs, as if afraid the world would punish her for needing help. Something familiar tightened in Ethan's chest. He had seen that expression in villages where nobody protected the children, and he knew immediately that leaving her alone now would be a kind of violence in itself. He crossed the street without hesitation. Ranger trotted beside him, alert but gentle. Lily didn't hear them until a shadow fell gently across her shoes. She looked up, startled, and saw a man crouching to her level, his expression calm but full of gravity, as if he saw her clearly in a way no one else had. "Hey," Ethan said softly. "Are you hurt?" Lily swallowed. Her voice was barely audible. "No one listens." Ethan's gaze hardened, not at her, but at the world that had failed her. "I'm listening," he said. Ranger stepped forward and rested his head lightly against her knee. Lily's breath caught. For the first time in weeks, something warm pushed back against the cold inside her. She didn't know it, but this moment, outside a tired police station in a quiet Colorado town, was the moment her life began to change. And it was the moment Ethan realized his leave would not be peaceful or simple or restorative. Someone needed him, and he had never once turned his back on someone who needed saving. The afternoon sky over Ashford dimmed beneath a thin veil of clouds as Ethan Cole stood beside Lily Harper on the police station steps, realizing with growing certainty that her story had stretched far beyond a child's imagination. The quiet street, lined with old brick shops and flickering streetlights, offered no comfort to the trembling girl who kept glancing over her shoulder as though the very air remembered the boys who had hurt her. Ethan guided Lily to sit on the bench beneath the station's awning, not touching her, only staying close enough that she could feel she wasn't alone. Ranger settled beside her feet in watchful stillness, an instinct born not from obedience, but from years of sensing danger before it arrived. Ethan had depended on that instinct more times than he could count. He crouched so Lily didn't have to look up too far. "Tell me what happened," he said gently. Lily hesitated, fingers tightening around the frayed strap of her backpack. She tried to speak twice before words finally spilled out, halting, shaky, but painfully clear. She told him about Hunter Briggs, Dylan Ward, and Ben McAllister cornering her behind the school storage shed, about the drawings they tore, about the shove that knocked her down last week, about the threats whispered so quietly no teacher would ever hear. Ethan listened without interrupting. His breaths grew slower, heavier, as though each detail Lily shared added weight to something he already carried but had hoped to put down during this brief leave from deployment. When she finished, she wiped her nose with the back of her sleeve, ashamed of tears she never asked for. Ethan didn't pity her. He respected her. A child who still found the courage to speak after so many adults turned away was stronger than most soldiers he had served beside. "You did the right thing telling me," he said. Lily didn't respond. She stared at the ground. Ranger lifted a paw and placed it carefully against her shoe. The gesture startled her, not because it was sudden, but because it felt like a promise. She whispered, "He always knows when something bad is going to happen, doesn't he?" Ethan nodded. "He's saved lives before. He knows fear when he sees it." Lily looked into Ranger's calm eyes and whispered so faintly Ethan hardly heard it, "I don't want them to hurt me again." Ethan felt something tighten in his chest, an old instinct, sharpened in places where help came too late. He rose, offering his hand. "Let's talk to someone who should have listened the first time." Inside the station, Officer Myers looked up when they re-entered. His expression flickered with annoyance at Ethan's uniform shirt and weary with a man too comfortable behind his desk. "Back again?" he muttered. Ethan stepped forward slowly, controlled, every word measured. "This girl came here asking for help. You didn't listen." Myers huffed. "Bullying isn't a police case. Threatening a child is," Ethan replied. "Cornering her behind school property is. Dragging her to a secluded area is." Myers leaned back in his chair as though the conversation bored him. "Look, we're a small department. We don't get involved unless there's actual violence." Lily flinched at the word. Ethan's jaw tightened. In war, indifference could kill as efficiently as a weapon. Here, it carved a different kind of wound, one that lingered in a child long after the bruise faded. A door opened at the back of the station, and a new figure stepped inside. Deputy Carla Jensen, a woman in her late 30s whose posture carried the firm resolve of someone who had once believed deeply in justice. She paused, noticing the tension. Carla approached the desk, glancing from Ethan's uniform to Lily's tear-streaked face. "What's going on?" Ethan explained everything concisely without dramatizing or softening. Carla listened with a furrowed brow, her focus sharp. When he finished, she turned toward Myers. "You didn't file a report?" "It's just kids." "A report should have been filed," she said firmly. Myers rolled his eyes. "We're understaffed. School stuff is for the counselors." Carla's jaw tightened. "Children slip through the cracks because we think their pain is small." Ethan recognized something in her tone. Someone who once fought for the right thing, but had been worn down by a system that rewarded silence. Carla knelt in front of Lily. "I believe you," she said. Lily's eyes widened, stunned by the simple sentence she had begged to hear all week. Carla continued, "I'll file a report myself, and I'll contact your school." Ethan nodded in approval, but before he could speak, Myers stood up and muttered under his breath, "The Briggs family won't like this." Lily stiffened. Ethan caught the name instantly. Briggs. Hunter Briggs. He suddenly understood why every adult seemed so quick to dismiss her. Influence, power. Families who thought rules didn't apply to them. Carla noticed the fear in Lily's face. "Don't listen to him," she said. "This isn't about the Briggs family. It's about you." But Myers's careless remark had already done its damage. Lily tugged Ethan's sleeve lightly. "They'll be angry." Ethan crouched again, voice steady. "No one hurts you again? I promise." An uncertain quiet settled in the station. Carla began typing the report. Ranger waited near Lily, unmoving, eyes fixed toward the door as though expecting danger. His rigid posture reminded Ethan of nights overseas, when Ranger sensed movement long before human ears detected it. The dog was reading the room, reading the fear. When Carla finished, she handed Ethan a copy. "If anything happens, bring her straight back here or call me directly. I'll keep pushing this." Ethan nodded his thanks, recognizing in Carla someone who had fought too many battles alone. She wasn't perfect, but she wasn't indifferent. Sometimes that was all a child needed. Outside, the clouds had darkened. A wind picked up, carrying with it the promise of colder days. Ashford's mountain ridges loomed like silent witnesses. Lily walked beside Ethan, step small and hesitant, but no longer dragging with resignation. "Where are we going now?" she asked softly. Ethan looked down at her, then toward Ranger, who seemed restless, alert in a way Ethan hadn't seen since deployment. "I'll take you home, and I'll talk to your mother." Lily hesitated. She's tired a lot. I don't want to make her sad. You won't, Ethan said, but she needs to know. They walked along the sidewalk. The streetlights flickered on early, casting long shadows. Lily glanced toward the road leading to Lincoln Ridge Elementary. A shiver crawled up her spine. Ethan noticed. You don't have to go near that place tonight. Lily nodded, but she looked over her shoulder one more time as though expecting the boys to step out from behind a tree. Ranger growled softly, not at her, but at the air, a low, warning rumble. Ethan slowed. Something was wrong. Ranger never growled without reason. The dog's ears lifted, his muscles tensed, his gaze fixed on the far end of the street near the dim school path. Ethan followed his line of sight, but the path was empty. Still, Ranger didn't settle. He pressed one paw against the pavement as if ready to sprint. Lily whispered, "Why is he doing that?" Ethan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he scanned the shadows stretching across the town, remembering too well the kind of danger that hides in silence. Something was coming, and this time he suspected it wouldn't wait for morning. Evening settled over Ashford in a low blue hush as Ethan Cole walked beside Lily Harper toward her apartment complex, Ranger keeping a steady pace a few steps ahead, alert to every shift in the air. The small mountain town felt different now, less like a quiet place and more like a stage preparing for something that had been waiting too long in the dark. Ethan sensed it in the way Ranger moved, in the way Lily kept glancing over her shoulder, and in the strange stillness hanging above the rooftops like held breath. Lily's apartment building stood near the hospital where her mother worked, a tired structure with peeling paint and dim stairwell lights that flickered unpredictably. Ethan had seen plenty of places like it during deployments, places where families did their best with what little they had. Lily paused at the entrance as though afraid to bring trouble home with her. "My mom. She didn't mean to not listen," she whispered. "She's just tired all the time." Ethan nodded. "Being tired doesn't make her a bad mother. It makes her human." Before Lily could reply, the front door opened abruptly, and Sarah Harper stepped out. She was still in her hospital scrubs, her shoulders sagging under the weight of another long shift. But the moment she saw Lily with a strange man and a military dog, her exhaustion burned away, replaced with pure alarm. "Lily, what happened? Why are you with—" She froze as Ethan introduced himself calmly, explaining he was home on leave and had found Lily at the police station. Sarah listened, torn between fear, guilt, and protective instinct. She didn't know Ethan, but something in his voice carried an earnestness she recognized, the same tone she had heard from paramedics after long nights of tragedy. "Lily," Sarah said softly, kneeling beside her daughter, "were you hurt?" Lily hesitated. She had always wanted to tell her mother, but the words had been trapped behind the fear of being seen as a burden. Now they spilled out in a trembling stream, about Hunter Briggs, about the cruelty, about the threats, and about the way no one at school cared enough to stop it. Sarah closed her eyes briefly, and Ethan saw a flash of regret deeper than fatigue. She pulled Lily close, whispering apologies over and over, as though her words alone could erase the pain. Ranger lowered himself beside them, watching with a calm stillness that came not from indifference, but from a life spent sensing the emotional wounds people couldn't hide. When Sarah finally rose, tears still clinging to her lashes, she looked at Ethan. "Thank you for bringing her home. I should have seen it sooner." "You see a lot of other people's pain?" Ethan said gently. Sometimes it's hardest to see the one closest to you." Sarah's lips pressed together, ashamed but grateful for his grace. Before she could reply, the upstairs window creaked open, and an older man leaned out. Mr. Alden, the landlord, known around the building more for his temper than kindness, squinted down at them. He had once worked in construction, but an accident years ago left him with a limp and a bitter edge that colored most of his interactions. "Everything all right out there?" he called down. His voice wasn't warm, but it wasn't hostile either, just wary, the tone of someone who had seen enough problems to expect more. "We're fine," Sarah called back. "Thank you." Mr. Alden nodded, but lingered a moment, eyeing Ethan with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion before retreating. Inside the apartment, Sarah set water to boil for tea, hands shaking slightly. Ethan stayed near the doorway, not wanting to intrude, but unwilling to leave Lily without assurance she'd be safe. Lily sat on the couch, hugging a pillow to her chest. Ranger positioned himself near her feet again, the same protective stance he had taken all day. Sarah took a seat across from Ethan and finally asked the question hanging heavy between them. "What do we do?" Ethan leaned forward slightly, elbows on his knees. "The police have a report now. Deputy Jensen seems willing to help. But the school, you'll need to speak with them tomorrow." Sarah frowned. "The Briggs family practically owns half the school board. If their son is involved, that's exactly why it can't be ignored." Ethan had seen power silence victims before. He had no intention of letting it happen again. Lily watched the adults with wide eyes, uncertain if speaking up again would burden them. Ethan noticed. "Lily," he said softly, "I want you to tell your mom what happened behind the gym today." Sarah stiffened. "Something happened today?" Lily hesitated, twisting the corner of the pillow. "Hunter told me to meet him after school, behind the gym. I didn't go. I went to the police instead." Sarah's face paled. "Why would he want you there?" Lily whispered. "They said they wanted to teach me a lesson." A fragile silence settled, one so thin it felt like it might shatter beneath the weight of fear. Ethan's instincts sharpened, old training rising unbidden. Threat, pattern, escalation. Ranger lifted his head at the exact same moment, ears angled toward the hallway as if sensing movement no one else could hear. A second later, a heavy bang echoed from outside, not close enough to be danger, but close enough to jolt every nerve awake. "What was that?" Sarah whispered. Mr. Alden shouted from upstairs, "Kids throwing rocks again! I'll deal with it!" The sound of a slamming window followed, but Ranger wasn't convinced. His muscles stayed tense, eyes tracking the front door. Ethan recognized the posture. Ranger was scenting something. Someone. "I should take a quick look?" Ethan murmured. Sarah nodded anxiously. Ethan stepped outside into the cool night. The street lights cast long streaks of yellow over the pavement. A faint breeze stirred the leaves, carrying the echo of something he couldn't place, something that didn't belong to a peaceful neighborhood. Ranger sniffed the air and let out a single low rumble deep in his throat. Ethan followed his gaze to the far end of the street. A figure was standing there, small, unfamiliar, still. Maybe a teenager, maybe younger. The silhouette lingered only a heartbeat before turning and disappearing behind the row of storage garages. Ethan narrowed his eyes. Was it just a neighborhood kid? Or someone following Lily? Ranger took a step forward, ready to pursue, but Ethan held up a hand, signaling him to stay. This wasn't the moment. Not yet. When they returned to the apartment, Lily sat upright, holding her backpack as though afraid to let go. She looked at Ethan, her voice barely above a whisper. Were they watching? Ethan didn't answer immediately. He didn't want to frighten her more, but lying would be a different kind of harm. I don't know, he said honestly, but I'll find out. Ranger moved to Lily's side again, settling his weight against her leg like a shield. Lily exhaled shakily. Will they come back? Ethan felt Sarah's eyes on him, full of fear and a desperate hope for honesty. After a long moment, he said quietly, If they do, they won't get anywhere near you. Lily nodded, but her fingers trembled. Sarah placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder and whispered, You're safe tonight. Outside, the wind shifted. A distant metallic clang echoed from the direction of the school. Ethan glanced toward the window. Ranger's ears shot up again. Something was unfolding in the dark corners of Ashford, something that would not wait for morning, and he knew the night was far from over. Night settled over Ashford with a thin, breathless quiet, the kind that made every sound feel sharper, every shadow deeper. In Lily Harper's small apartment, Ethan Cole remained near the door, unwilling to leave while Ranger paced in slow, deliberate arcs, nose lifted as if reading danger from the air itself. Sarah Harper had finally managed to coax Lily into the shower, but her own hands still trembled as she wiped the kitchen counter for the third time. Fear made people restless in strange ways. Ethan stood near the window, scanning the dim street outside. The earlier sighting of a shadowed figure near the garages gnawed at him. Someone had been watching the building, watching Lily, most likely, and Ethan had learned long ago that threats rarely disappeared on their own. They shifted, adapted, chose new angles of attack. Ranger halted suddenly and stared at the front door, his muscles tightening with the same tension Ethan had seen countless times on deployments. "Easy," Ethan murmured. Though he knew it wasn't reassurance the dog needed, Ranger was responding to something real, something he sensed, but Ethan couldn't yet hear. Sarah reappeared from the hallway, her exhaustion deeper now that she fully understood what Lily had been facing. Ethan, will they really come after her again? He turned toward her, speaking quietly. Bullies escalate when they think they're losing control, and when adults protect their target, they sometimes act before they think. We need to be cautious. Sarah swallowed hard. Tomorrow, I'll speak to the principal. She didn't get to finish, because, at that exact moment, Lily emerged from the hallway, hair damp, clutching her backpack tightly against her chest. Please don't leave tonight, she whispered. Her fear wasn't the dramatic kind. It was the quiet dread of a child who had endured too much in silence. Ethan nodded without hesitation. I'm staying until you feel safe. Ranger moved to her side and pressed his body lightly against her legs, not to restrain her, but to ground her. That was how he had been trained, using presence as protection. A sudden clatter echoed from outside, metal against pavement. Sarah covered her mouth. Lily flinched backward. Ranger growled low and certain. Ethan stepped to the window again. A trash bin lay tipped near the alley. Just wind or something else? The night seemed to pulse with unspoken tension. Ethan decided, I want to check the area. I won't go far. Ranger stays with you both. Ranger whined. The dog hated being separated from him, but Ethan knew Lily needed the comfort more than he needed backup. The air outside was colder than before. A thin frost coated the edges of parked cars. Ashford at night was not dangerous by reputation, but danger didn't need reputation. It only needed opportunity. Ethan walked around the building, scanning for movement. The garages were empty. The alley was silent. No sign of the person he'd seen earlier, but something still felt wrong. Too quiet, too careful. When he returned, Lily sat curled into the couch, Ranger pressed firmly against her side. Sarah hovered protectively nearby. Ethan did not speak of his unease, but it lingered between them like a warning bell that refused to stop ringing. Eventually, Lily drifted to sleep, exhaustion overwhelming her fear. Ranger stayed beside her. Ethan helped Sarah bolt the windows and secure the door. It was late, too late for a child to sleep without nightmares. But silence returned to the apartment, heavy yet briefly peaceful. When morning came, it brought pale sunlight and the illusion of normalcy. Lily woke with dark circles beneath her eyes, but she managed a small, brave smile. Sarah left early for a mandatory meeting at the hospital, anxious but trusting Ethan's promise to keep watch until school hours. Ethan walked Lily to school himself. Ranger stayed close, posture alert but calm, as if he knew the walk wasn't routine. Lily clung to her backpack straps. Students moved through the courtyard in clusters, laughing, oblivious. But Lily's steps slowed the moment they reached the side path leading to the rear of the gym. Her throat tightened. Her feet halted. "This is where they wait sometimes," she whispered. Ethan crouched. "You're safe. I'm here." Ranger moved ahead, nose lifted, scanning. The dog paused at a corner, stiffened, then turned back toward them with a low rumble that vibrated through the concrete beneath their feet. Ethan rose instantly. Something was wrong. He motioned for Lily to stay close as they rounded the corner. The back of the gym loomed like a forgotten concrete wall. Old dumpsters lined the fence. Beyond them, the entrance to the storage building stood slightly ajar. That wasn't normal. A faint scraping noise echoed from inside. Lily's breath hitched. Ethan's instincts surged. This was a setup, not for him, for her. He signaled Ranger forward. The dog approached the doorway slowly, pausing to sniff the air. His body tightened. He sensed someone inside. Ethan whispered, "Stay behind me," and moved closer. Before he could open the door fully, a voice, thin, shaken, trying to sound brave, came from behind. "Ethan, I think that's Hunter's sweatshirt." Lily was staring at a scrap of red cloth caught on a nail near the entrance. Ethan recognized it immediately from her descriptions. A deliberate clue, a lure. Someone wanted Lily to step inside that building. Ethan pulled the door wider. The darkness inside swallowed the sunlight. Old sports mats lay scattered. Metal lockers lined the far wall. He listened carefully, breath held, waiting. Then he saw it. A single, faint footprint in the dust near the back corner, smaller than an adult's, too large to be Lily's. He turned to her. "We're leaving, now." But before they could retreat, Ranger snapped his head toward the far end of the yard. A figure darted behind the dumpster, a quick blur of movement. Lily gasped. Ethan's pulse spiked. The trap hadn't been inside. It was outside. He shielded Lily immediately as Ranger lunged forward with a thunderous bark, the kind he'd used clearing buildings overseas. Someone scrambled away, knocking over a metal bin, feet pounding across gravel. Ethan couldn't leave Lily unprotected to chase, but he knew one thing with absolute clarity. Whoever had been here had come close. Too close. And they weren't done. Not even close. The morning light over Ashford stretched thin across the schoolyard, bright but cold. as though the sun itself was unsure about shining on what had happened behind the gym. Ethan Cole walked Lily straight to her classroom door, refusing to let her out of sight until he knew every corner was secure. Ranger stayed close, his movements precise and measured, guided by instincts shaped in war zones where danger often hid behind the familiar. The teachers at Lincoln Ridge Elementary watched the trio with uncertainty. Most had heard whispers. Someone had spotted the seal walking the grounds. Someone else claimed to have heard Ranger barking at shadows near the dumpsters. But none of them knew the truth of what happened that morning, and none dared to ask. Lily clung to her backpack strap until Ethan cupped her shoulder gently. "I'll be outside. You're not alone anymore." She nodded, small but steadier than the day before, and stepped into the classroom with a bravery far too heavy for a 7-year-old. Once she vanished behind the door, Ethan's focus shifted toward the administration offices. He had come back to the school for one reason. Someone needed to be held accountable, and he wasn't letting another day pass without confronting the adults who had chosen silence over responsibility. The front office smelled faintly of paper and stale coffee. Behind the counter sat Mrs. Thornton, the school secretary, a woman known in town for running the office with tight efficiency. She was polite, but meticulous to the point of rigidity. Years of dealing with school bureaucracy had shaped her into someone who followed rules even when compassion demanded bending them. She froze when she looked up and saw Ethan. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice thinning. "I need to speak with Principal Briggs," Ethan said. A flicker of something, worry perhaps, ran through her eyes. Mrs. Thornton wasn't cruel, but she had worked under Principal Briggs long enough to know when trouble was coming, and the presence of a military man with a K-9 partner was unmistakably trouble. "He's in a meeting. You can—" "I'll wait." His tone was calm but unyielding. Mrs. Thornton pressed her lips together. She didn't want to deny him. She also didn't want to be caught in whatever was about to unfold. She simply pointed to the chairs along the wall. Ethan sat. Ranger laid at his feet, silent but coiled like a held breath. A few minutes later, the office door opened, and Principal Marcus Briggs stepped out. He was a man who had once been respected for his involvement in district committees and a brief career in youth sports. But years of influence had sharpened his temper and blunted his empathy. He froze when he saw Ethan and Ranger, and instantly masked his surprise behind practiced authority. "Can I help you?" Briggs asked, though his tone carried a quiet edge of annoyance. Ethan rose, leveling his gaze with the man. "Yes, we need to talk about what your son has been doing." The hallway fell into a tense silence. Mrs. Thornton suddenly focused intensely on her keyboard. "My son?" Briggs repeated. "Hunter doesn't get into trouble." "He cornered Lily behind the gym several times," Ethan said. "He threatened her. He led her into a setup this morning." Briggs scoffed. "Children exaggerate. Lily is sensitive. She's had issues." Ethan's jaw tightened. "She's had bruises." Briggs shrugged. "Kids fall." "This was no fall." Ethan's voice hardened. "And your son isn't acting alone. Dylan and Ben are involved." A muscle twitched in Briggs's jaw. Though he tried to look composed, a subtle crack formed in his veneer. "I'll speak to them, but you have no right to—" "I have every right," Ethan cut in, "to step in when a child is in danger." Briggs opened his mouth to argue, but before he could, the office door swung open again, and Deputy Carla Jensen stepped inside. Ethan didn't expect to see her, but the timing could not have been sharper. Carla scanned the room, her attention moving from Ethan to Briggs with the calm precision of someone who had practiced confronting authority her entire career. "Morning," she said. Briggs stiffened. "Deputy Jensen, what brings you?" "I'm following up on the report filed last night." Her tone remained courteous, but it carried an unmistakable steel beneath it. "The one concerning your son." Mrs. Thornton dropped her pen. The room went silent. Ethan watched Briggs's posture change, not outwardly aggressive, but defensive, calculating. "That report never should have been filed," Briggs said. "This is a school matter." "Threatening a child," Carla replied, "is a legal matter." Briggs inhaled sharply. Ranger growled once, short, firm, making Briggs flinch before catching himself. Carla continued, "I spoke with the district safety officer. They want copies of everything, and I'll be interviewing the boys." Briggs tried to recover his composure. "You're making a mistake, Deputy. You don't know this town." "I know enough," Carla replied, "to see what people try to hide." Ethan recognized something in her tone, someone walking a line between duty and the weight of a system stacked against her. Briggs wasn't finished. "This school depends on families like mine. My contributions—" "Don't excuse your son," Carla said sharply. A long, dangerous silence followed. Briggs stared at Ethan as if searching for a weakness, then shifted his attention to Ranger, who stared back with the unwavering calm of a creature that had faced far worse dangers than entitled men. Briggs finally said, "If you interfere again, I'll file a complaint with the district and the police department." Carla's eyes narrowed. "File whatever you want. But if your son harms that child again, you'll be dealing with much more than paperwork." Briggs turned and stormed into his office, slamming the door behind him hard enough to rattle the frame. The moment he left, Mrs. Thornton released a long breath she had been holding. Carla sighed and looked at Ethan. "He's going to push back hard. Men like Briggs don't take humiliation quietly." Ethan nodded. "I don't care how loud he gets. Lily won't be alone." Carla hesitated, then said quietly, "Be careful. Briggs has friends who think like he does." Ethan didn't flinch. "So do I." Ranger lifted his head in agreement. A bell rang in the hallway, signaling the start of classes. Children's voices filled the building, unaware of the storm gathering among the adults meant to protect them. Carla straightened her uniform. "I'll visit their homes this evening. I'll question the boys separately." Ethan appreciated her resolve. She wasn't just following protocol. She was trying to break a cycle she'd probably witnessed too many times. As she turned to leave, she paused. "Keep your eyes open. Something feels off today." Ethan's gaze moved toward the window, where a figure passed in the distance, a quick blur that moved too deliberately to be coincidence. Ranger saw it too, and he bristled. Someone was watching. Again. And this time, Ethan knew the confrontation with the real threat was closer than anyone realized. Morning broke over Ashford with a thin, golden light that stretched across the rooftops and cast long shadows under the quiet streets. It should have been a peaceful ending to a long week, but for Ethan Cole, the brightness only sharpened his alertness. Something in the air felt unsettled, as if the town itself was waiting for a confrontation no one wanted to admit was coming. Ranger sensed it first. He stayed close to Ethan as they approached Lincoln Ridge Elementary, his movements tight and controlled, the posture of a dog who had lived through ambushes and knew the weight of silence before danger. Ethan walked Lily to school once more. She was tired but determined, holding her backpack with a strange mixture of defiance and vulnerability. Sarah Harper had the morning off and walked beside them, wanting to see her daughter through the doors herself. "It'll be okay," Sarah whispered, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her fear. Ethan didn't offer false comfort. He simply nodded and positioned himself so he could watch the courtyard from multiple angles. Children filtered into the building, oblivious to the tension weaving through the adults. Lily hesitated only once when she passed the path leading behind the gym. Ethan saw the panic flicker through her and gently steered her away. Inside the school, Principal Briggs did not appear. His office door remained closed. Mrs. Thornton avoided eye contact, her silence a subtle acknowledgment that the situation had spun into something too large for office protocol. Sarah knelt and kissed Lily's forehead. "I'll pick you up right after school," she said. "No waiting, no staying late." Lily nodded, hugged her mother tightly, then glanced at Ethan. "Will he be here too?" "I'll be close," Ethan said. "I promise." She stepped into class. The door shut behind her. Sarah exhaled shakily. "Thank you," she murmured. Ethan didn't answer. He was already scanning. Ranger stood beside him, rigid, ears turning toward faint sounds. A locker slamming, distant footsteps on asphalt, and something else, something heavier, sharper, out of rhythm with the school's natural noise. Ethan walked Sarah out, then returned to the courtyard. He positioned himself by the front steps, a place with clear sightlines. Ranger sat beside him, posture tense but patient. Mid-morning passed uneventfully. Children ran across the yard. Teachers supervised recess. But then Ranger's head snapped toward the far side of the field, toward the tall oak tree near the fence line, a place where adults rarely looked. Ethan followed his gaze. A shape moved in the shadow, small, quick, deliberate. Not a teacher, not a student. Someone hiding, someone watching. Before Ethan could move, the school alarm blared, a shrill, piercing noise that cut through the air like a blade. Children screamed. Teachers shouted instructions. Doors slammed shut. Ethan's heart lurched. "Active threat protocol," he muttered. "Why now?" But Ranger didn't wait for logic. He bolted toward the side of the building where Lily's classroom was located. Ethan sprinted after him. He turned the corner just in time to see a figure, thin, frantic, wearing a hood, grab Lily by the wrist as she exited her classroom during the confusion. Her scream tore through the hallway. "Lily!" Ethan shouted. The figure dragged her toward the exit leading to the back of the gym, the same place where the boys had tried to lure her before. But this wasn't Hunter Briggs, nor Dylan, nor Ben. This was someone smaller, leaner, moving with the manic energy of someone desperate. As Ethan closed the distance, the hooded figure looked back. For the first time, Ethan saw the face, pale, furious, frightened. It was Tyler Briggs, Hunter's older cousin, a boy notorious in town for violent tantrums and unpredictable behavior. He had once been expelled from a private academy for an incident the school quietly buried. Ashford had whispered about it for months. Tyler yanked Lily harder. "You ruined everything," he shouted. "My family's going to suffer because of you." It all clicked. He wasn't doing this for Hunter. He was doing it because the investigation threatened his family, his reputation, his fragile sense of control. Tyler shoved open the side door and dragged Lily toward the storage building. Ethan sprinted. "Let her go!" Tyler tried to slam the door shut behind him, but Ranger barreled through first, slamming his weight into Tyler's legs. The boy fell hard, Lily slipping from his grasp. She scrambled backward, sobbing. Tyler kicked wildly, catching Ranger in the side, but the dog didn't retreat. He stood firm, a silent wall of resolve, refusing to attack, but refusing to yield. Ethan grabbed Tyler by the collar and pulled him upright. "Don't touch her again," he growled, voice low and deadly. Tyler panicked. "It's not my fault. It's hers. She told. They said my dad, my whole family." Ethan tightened his grip. "Your family's choices aren't her burden." Tyler's rage shattered into trembling fear. "They'll blame me. They always blame me." It wasn't an excuse, but it was a grim window into the chaos that shaped him. Before Ethan could respond, Deputy Carla Jensen burst through the doorway, having raced to the school after hearing the alarm over dispatch. She froze only long enough to take in the scene, then quickly restrained Tyler, cuffing him with efficient precision. "I knew something was off today," she muttered. "I should have followed my gut sooner." Lily ran to Ethan, clinging to him with trembling arms. He knelt, steadying her. "You're safe," he whispered. "It's over." Ranger pressed his head against Lily's side, grounding her with the instinctive comfort only a K-9 could give. Carla guided Tyler outside to her patrol car. "His father's been in trouble before," she said. "Anger issues, buried reports. This time, none of it goes away quietly." Ethan lifted Lily gently. "Let's get you back inside." She nodded, still shaking. As they walked through the hallway, teachers emerged from classrooms, stunned by the unfolding truth. Many looked ashamed. They had dismissed Lily, ignored warnings, trusted the wrong people. Principal Briggs appeared last, his face pale. Carla's voice cut through the tension. "Your nephew just attempted to abduct a student. We have him in custody." Briggs swayed, gripping the doorframe. For the first time he looked small. No power, no authority. Just a man confronted with the consequences of everything he'd refused to see. Lily hid her face in Ethan's shirt. Ranger growled softly at Briggs, not in threat, but in judgment. By late afternoon, the school reopened for parents to collect their children. News spread quickly. Families whispered, some cried, others thanked Ethan through tears. Sarah arrived, breathless, and ran to her daughter. Lily let go of Ethan and fell into her mother's arms, finally breaking into sobs that had been held in for far too long. Sarah looked at Ethan. No words passed between them, but gratitude filled her eyes. Ethan understood. He stepped back, letting them have their moment. Ranger sat beside him, breathing slow, finally calm. As the sun began to set behind Ashford's rugged mountains, painting the sky in fading gold, Ethan knew his leave from deployment had never truly been a break. It had been a mission, one he hadn't expected, but one he was meant to complete. Lily stood beside him again at the school gates. "Will you still visit us?" she asked. Ethan rested a hand on her shoulder. "Whenever I can," he said, "and you won't need protecting forever. One day you'll walk without fear." She smiled, a small, brave smile, and for the first time the shadows around Ashford felt a little less heavy. Ranger nudged her gently. She laughed. Peace returned to the town, quiet but real. And though Ethan knew he would soon return to his unit, he also knew the bond forged in those difficult days would not fade. Some missions leave marks, others leave hope, and this one left both. In a small town, overshadowed by fear and indifference, no one expected that a young Navy SEAL on leave and a battle-tested German shepherd would become the miracle a frightened little girl had been praying for. But God has a way of sending the right people to the right place at the right time, especially when a child whispers a desperate prayer into the quiet night. Some miracles don't arrive with shining lights or angelic choirs. Some miracles wear a faded SEAL uniform and carry old scars from battles no one sees. Some walk on 4 legs, guided only by loyalty and courage stronger than steel. And some miracles begin simply with a trembling voice saying, "Please help me." Ethan was not an angel, but he was sent like a reminder that God still watches over us, that in the darkest moments He places a light in someone's path. Ranger could not speak, yet his devotion was proof that God's goodness lives even in the hearts of the quietest protectors. And Lily, once too scared to lift her head, now walks without fear. That is the greatest miracle of all. This story is more than a story. It is a reminder that each of us can be a miracle to someone else, through a small act of kindness, a moment of courage, a choice to stand on the side of what is right. If this touched your heart, share it. Help someone see that goodness is still alive, even in a world that feels heavy. Leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and join us in spreading hope. And may God bless you. You who are watching this, you who stayed until the end, you who carry light in your own quiet way. May He guard your steps, comfort your fears, and place a miracle in your path when you need it most. God bless you, and thank you for watching.